Right, brings me on then to this evening's speaker. Stepping in at short notice is Penny Wheat, and the title is Perils Public Speaker. And I presume one of those is being asked to step in at short notice. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm here down to two people. One person is Pumpkin. Now, there's lots of ladies here tonight, and I expect most of you have got your own pumpkin, either here or back at home. And my pumpkin, sadly, isn't with me any longer, but he had a wonderful memory for stuff that happened 60 years ago. But what I said to him that morning had just gone into the ether, because I'd never bothered to speak at all. And I think most ladies will tell you that their own pumpkins are rather like that. It's called selective memories, I think. Oh, no. And he had a mother-in-law called Daisy because he was a widower. So when I married him, he'd got not only his first mother-in-law, who was still alive, but he inherited my mother as his second mother-in-law. So, I mean, how envious are all the men in this room of him, of having not one, but two mothers-in-law. I don't know what Les Dawson had to say about that. But his first mother-in-law was a very keen member of the WI. And we used to go and see her every Friday, and she said, you know, she said, the WI are always looking for speakers. Have you ever thought about putting yourself forward as a WI speaker? And I said, no, I haven't actually. And that put Pumpkin in mind of something, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And he looked at me, and I could see the brain working. He said, I think you should consider it because you love speaking. So that's why I'm here tonight. And his first mother-in-law, Daisy. Now, what had put him in mind of that was the fact that he grew up in Stafford, never went out of Stafford at all his life until he did his national service. And he lived in a big old house where this park is now. It used to be an old coal yard owned by Lord Stafford, and it was a company called Hall & Co. on that coal yard. And it was a big old drafty house, Victorian house, no central heating, no double glazing, and on a Friday night, Pumpkin's job was to go down the back path in the garden to the outside levee and cut up the radio times and put it on a hook behind the door. That was his job every Friday. And, oh, it was cold, that house. And one year, the winter of 1947, 48, 46, 47, the coldest winter on record. And he lived there with his mum and his dad and his brother and an old maiden aunt. So there were 5 of them in that house, and it was bitter cold. And mother, Ethel, did what she did every single night of her married life. She went up to bed. And she did this. And the next morning, those teeth were frozen in that glass. And her husband, Ernie, the coal man, was heard to say, "Ye by heck, that's the first time them teeth have ever been quiet." Pumpkin in mind of me becoming a speaker, because he said, you never stop talking either, so you may as well go out and earn a few crusts doing it. So that's how I'm here today, because of Pumpkin and Daisy. One of the perils that I'm sure you can think of, it's pretty obvious really, is getting lost. I mean, I'm the world champion at getting lost. I really am. I get lost in Stafford, and I live in Stafford. And I've now got a wonderful travelling companion called Sandra. And I expect most of you have probably got Sandras of your own. But if you have to be a bit careful with the Sandra, because Sandras are not foolproof. My Sandra has taken me into a farmyard and tried to take me actually into the farm. My Sandra's taken me over several rivers, fords, rivers, and she's taken me up streets that don't even exist anymore, and up one-way streets the wrong way. So you have to have a bit of nous if you've got a Sandra. You have to apply a bit of the old grey matter to them. But at least Sandras generally get you to the right place-ish. But before I had Sandra, oh, I used to have to set out hours before to get anywhere at all. And two of the places where I used to get lost all the time, funnily enough, I'm going there next Monday. So this time next week, I'll be at one of those dreadful places where I always get lost, which is Horton. Now, Horton's only up the road from where I live. It's the next village. But I've been 4 times, and every time I've got lost going to Horton. Every time. Because the village hall is on a bend, and there's a big high hedge and a wall. So when you're driving along at night, you can't see at all. And of course, I just go shooting past all the while. Now, the interesting thing about Horton, as you probably will know, it's well known for its Christmas lights. And this year is the first time I didn't actually go and see them because of COVID. But I've been every year to see the lights. And Horton's got a reputation which is much better than Blackpool for its lights, you know. Much better than Blackpool. People come from miles around to see them. Homes along every side street and cul-de-sac are festooned and bedecked with 1 trillion dancing bulbs. For the Christmas period, the neighbouring villages' power supplies take a dip as the national grid struggles to cope with the upsurge in demand from the life-size waving Santas and reindeer galloping over the rooftops. Each year the display is bigger and better, and more money is raised for good causes. Surely it can only be a matter of time before questions are asked in Parliament about the need to build a new power station to cope with the upsurge of luminosity. All this gave me an idea. I had Beth Lynn on the committee. I said to her, how about before I return to Horton, you'll hold an extraordinary general meeting? All the residents of Horton could be asked to loan their waving Santas, swinging bells, strings of multicoloured lights, flashing snowflakes and Disney characters. And you could pile them all onto the village hall roof. That way, hopefully, next time, which is next Monday, I might have a chance of finding a place. And of course, somewhere here, I have brought my very own Christmas lights. I haven't put them away yet. I brought them with me for you to see. There we are. So getting lost is definitely a problem. And Horton is top of my list because I've been 4 times and got lost 4 times. Brereton, terrible. Brereton's awful. The problem with Brereton is that it's on the dual carriageway. And the little hall where they meet is called the Old Free School. And it's tucked in amongst a lot of other buildings. And if you go past it, which I always do, you have to go all the way up to the top, all the way back down the other side, and all the way up again. And of course, I went past it. I went all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down 3 whole times. In the end, I parked on the pub car park. And the chap probably says, leave your car here and walk, it's easier. So that's what I did. But when I got there, the ladies of the WI were really pleased to see me. Oh, they said, it's lovely to see you. I said, that's a nice warm welcome, thank you. Oh yes, they said, well, last month we had a man. I said, aren't you lucky? No, they said, we had a man speaker. But to be strictly accurate, we didn't have a man. She said, got lost. He rang us up, but he said, I can't find you, and I've gone home. So no wonder. She was pleased to see me. You see, that's what happens when you ask for men speakers. They let you down, don't they? Women always turn up. Yes. Abbots Bromley, another dreadful place to hide. Dreadful. There's loads of signs for King's Bromley, and I could never find a sign for Abbots Bromley. And I was going along, and I was just totally lost. So I stopped the car. I thought I'll have to ring home like E.T. did. So I went and got my trusty phone out. Now I'll explain to you that this is my not very mobile phone, because it will probably be on the Antiques Roadshow next week. Yes. People do collect phones like this. It's called Philip, because everything in my house has got a name, and it's a Philip's phone, so what else would it be called? So I stopped at the side of the road and I tapped my phone number in, and Pumpkin answered the phone. I said, Pumpkin, I said, I'm getting so stressed. I haven't got to Abbots Bromley yet. So he said to me, ladies, you'll know what I mean when I say this isn't very helpful. He said to me, where are you then? I did manage to find Abbots Bromley eventually. Yoxall. Yoxall's another terrible place, because now I'm going to tell you the way I went, and somebody said to me, why on earth did you go that way? But I don't know why I went that way, but I did go this way. I went through a place where there's not one, not two, not three, but 4 of them, Ridwares. Madison Ridware, Hythe Ridware, Hensel Ridware, and Hill Ridware. And I got lost in all 4 of them. And some bright spark said, oh, I don't know why you come this way. You didn't know to go that way at all. And I thought, well, that's very helpful because I'm here now. So it was freezing cold. It was November. It was pouring with rain. But what am I going to do? I just don't know where Yoxall is at all. So I stopped outside this house, and there was a light on upstairs. So I knocked on the door. I thought, I'll get some directions. And the light went out. I thought, oh dear, whoever's in the house obviously thinks I'm collecting for charity. And they're hiding behind a sofa. That's what I do. But then the light went on in the hall. And the door opened a smidgen, and an eye looked out at me. I could just see an eye. And it was a really blue eye. And then the door slammed to again. And I thought, oh no, please don't shut the door. Please come out. I need directions. What I didn't realise, ladies and gents, was that this person had been in the bath. In November as well. This person, and he'd come down to answer the door, and he'd gone back in to try and find something to cover his modesty. And he came out with a blue toweling bathrobe, which he put on when he came out to show me how to get to Yoxall. Now, Pumpkin did not own a blue toweling bathrobe, but this chap's blue eyes perfectly matched his bathrobe, and this red bathrobe perfectly matched Pumpkin's eyes. So I brought that instead. Perfect match for bloodshot eyes. So you see, getting lost is something I do quite frequently. You might think the right place is an end of all the worries, but no. Stafford Town's women meet, or they used to meet, at Liso's school. But what they don't tell you is there are 2 schools, a bit like here really, it's a big campus. There are 2 schools, and of course they know that, so they know where they're going. And I didn't know that, so I walked in and I thought these townswomen are all a bit on the short side, and the brownies. Hand church meet in the village hall, but so do the men's bowls club. So of course I went into the men's bowls club. Tillington, worst of all, in Stafford. Big, busy church, lots of stuff going on. And I walked into the room and a lady came up. She said, "Oh, it's lovely to see you. Are you going to join us?" I said, "No, I'm not going to join you. I'm going to speak to you." "Oh dear," she said. "Oh dear, we're not expecting you." I said, "Really?" I said, "I've been booked up to come here for a while." "Oh no," she said, "we're not expecting you." And I looked around, and there, on the floor, I got to Weight Watchers. I think probably I ought to have joined them after all, but never mind. So getting to the right place and to the right room is a problem. But another problem, which you may not have thought about, is doing the wrong talk. I went to the Laurels, which is a housing association on the way towards Rugeley. And the lady there, Carol, she invited me to speak to the folks, mixed group. And they all sat there like you are sitting here. And I brought all my stuff in out of the car and set it all up. Now, this was a different talk I was doing, so you'll understand why in a minute. Find it. Oh. Never mind. Can't find the scroll. But I set up all sorts of stuff. There was piercing saws, there was needle files, there was photographs of jewellery, there was hallmarking stamps, there was solder, there was silver tube, silver wire, silver sheet, all sorts of stuff. And it took me about 20 minutes to set up all this stuff on the table. And then Carol stood up and she said, "Ladies and gents, I'd like to introduce Penny to you. She's going to talk to us about prison visiting." So there are always problems with the destination, with the room, and with the talk. Have you ever thought how scary some places are? I don't think you're particularly scary here, but some places, and I've mentioned one already, are very scary. Abbots Bromley, for one. Now, I mentioned Abbots Bromley. Does anybody know anything about Abbots Bromley? Exactly. The horn dance. Oh, yes. Abbots Bromley. This is true, by the way. 12 fellows who had nothing better to do on the Monday in September decided it would be a great idea to cavort round the village on a 10-mile course for a full 12 hours, dressed as Maid Marian, a hobby horse, a bowman, and a fool, with 6 deermen carting round 6 huge sets of antlers, weighing between 16 and 25 pounds on their shoulders, dancing to the accompaniment of a melodeon and triangle at 12 locations en route, and striking the bemused onlookers over the head with a pig's bladder on a stick. 777 and a few more now, years later, they're still at it. And nobody knows why. The Abbots Bromleyans regard it as an honour to be chosen to take part in this ritual. If they're not balmy, I don't know who is. Why would you want to go there? Now, somewhere, I've got my own hobby horse. It's a bit smaller than the real ones. There it is. My own hobby horse. Straight off the Prison Street, yeah. Lee Hall. Lee Hall. Old Miners' Welfare. And it used to be quite run down at Lee Hall. Then they had a lottery grant and they spent a lot of money doing it all up, but it's really quite nice now. But the first time I went, it was a bit run down. And I parked round the back and a lady came out and she said, "Where have you left your car, Ducky?" I said, "Round the back." "No," she said, "move it, move it." I said, "Where do you want me to move it to?" "Round the front, under that lamppost," she said. Otherwise, when you come to go home, you'll have no wheels. Coven. Have you thought about Coven? Now, I was born and bred in Stoke. I married a Staffordian, so I went down in the world, literally. But I've never heard of Coven. I thought, C-O-V-E-N, that doesn't sound very good. I was a bit scared. So I did what everybody does these days. I asked good old Google. According to Google, the village's website gave me some reassurance. Apparently, it didn't derive its name, as I presumed, from witchcraft. But it was probably named after a knight under Robert Stafford called Alan de Coven. You probably know all about this because your family history lot. But initially, my imagination had run riot. I pictured the village hall, forbidding, cold and grey, shrouded in ivy and creepers. Pushing open the heavy oak door on its rusty hinges, I brushed away a cobweb and peered nervously into the candlelit gloom. There in a circle sat the members, cloaked in black with tall pointy hats. In the centre of the room, not the customary table with the cloth and floral decoration, but a bubbling pot. In low voices they sang, not the familiar strains of Jerusalem, but a hideous incantation reminiscent of Shakespeare. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn, cauldron, bubble. I have newt, tongue of frog, wool of hat, bat, and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blind worm sting, lizard's leg and howlet's wing, or a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth, boil and bubble. Cool it with the speaker's blood, then the charm is firm and good. But they were dead nice. And you're very lucky because I've cleaned out all my geraniums so you can have the cauldron.